Hello everybody, today our topic is none other than Nintendo. I've been wanting to do a Nintendo video since E3. It's been like a month and no Nintendo video, but that's because other topics keep coming up. Plus, I am mighty addicted to Warframe. I love that game to death. Video will be coming about that. Either way, Nintendo. They swept E3 with some pretty amazing things, such as Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey is, of course, the ability to play as Mario and visit all these different worlds, kind of Super Mario 64-like. But you see, your hat is a demon. And Nintendo would like to believe otherwise, how Mario uses his hat to possess enemies, saying, No, you're capturing them. Mario is capturing those enemies. They actually made a big deal about this on social media because, in China, heaven forbid we talk about possession. The mental health organization, whatever, the governmental organization that prevents things like that from happening, they changed Death Knights in World of Warcraft to Fade Knights, changed Death Strike to Fade Strike, removed all the skeletons, turned them into zombies. Even the Forsaken don't have visible bone parts. No, it's legitimately interesting how China, which is such a huge market share, huge part of the world, has this oppressive government that prevents them from talking about certain things. So, likewise, this video is probably going to get blocked in China. I don't care. Either way, yes, it's confirmed Mario possesses enemies, and Nintendo doesn't want you to know about it. Moving on, however, we found one of the most awesome things, which wasn't created by Nintendo. It was actually an Ubisoft property known as the Raving Rabbids, which is a Rayman spin-off. Either way, these rabbits look awful. They are terrible, and I don't know how they got their own game, but now they're going to be integrated with Mario. What makes this exciting is not that they're going to do a crossover. That is not exciting at all. Not exciting is that Rabbit Peach that looks just butt ugly. What is exciting is the fact that the Rabbids game is going to be XCOM Mario. XCOM Mario. Take a moment and think about that. If you ever played XCOM 2, it's pretty damn fun, especially after you've modded the parts of it you don't like out of the game. Yes, modding is a big deal with XCOM 2, I would say, and I'm probably going to have to do a video on that. Of course, everyone's going to be like, talk about Long War! I'm not going to talk about Long War right now. So, tangents aside, Mario XCOM. Give Mario a gun. Have him shoot rabbits. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, they went ahead and did the Skyrim reveal, which we all knew was going to be on the Switch, and people stupidly, I mean really stupidly, went and said, Skyrim for the Switch has not been confirmed. Bethesda refuses to confirm it, therefore it is not real. Do not get your expectations up. And, so on and so forth. That's because GameCube used their proprietary format after promising a ton of things, and all the developers pulled their support. This is not the case in the age we're in. You can put your game on any kind of media you want because they're all PC games, essentially. They're just put into different formats. Either way, Skyrim is getting a Switch port, and a Link amiibo is going to unlock a chest that allows your Skyrim character to put on Link's armor, have Link's sword, so on and so forth. It's not really exciting at all. I'm really afraid that they're going to do the motion control sword fighting, which has never worked even once in Nintendo. Except for one Star Wars game. Yeah, just like a lightsaber dueling game. That's the only time it ever worked. Whenever you give it to a character on a 3D plane space, it is awful. Give me my controller back. Thank you very much. So that news had a lot of my friends pumped. They were excited. Not me so much. What got me was the Metroid announcements. Both Metroid Prime 4, which we saw no footage of, and then a Metroid 2 Return of Samus remake. For those of you who don't know, Metroid 2 Return of Samus was a Game Boy game that I played quite a bit, actually. I'm a huge fan of all the 2D Metroid games. So you think that seeing a 2D side-scroller, but 3D represented version of Samus, a modernized look on the old game would get me excited. Unfortunately, that was not the case. It got me pumped, but in a fight me Nintendo sort of way, because we've already had a Metroid 2 remake, AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake it's called, and it is, from what I can see visually, and having played Metroid 2 and AM2R all the way through, a better game. Stylistically speaking, I'm not a fan of this cartoony 2D plane that they've put in front of us here, whereas if you look at AM2R, you can see something that looks a lot more visually appealing, that Metroid 2 pixel art aesthetic. And pixel art is still going strong even today. I mean, a lot of developers misuse it. Pixel art is a valid art form, but if you don't make a good game behind it, it's not worth the art that is put in front of you. In Metroid 2's case, however, it's amazing, because what AM2R did is they recreated Super Metroid's format, but they put it in Metroid 2 Return of Samus, and that is just so cool, especially with all the added bosses and the added storyline sections and the scanner that gives you the lore hints as you're going through the game. So I hate to say it, but the fan game is looking better than the full release. And why did I title this video Nintendo or Still Scumbags? Well, that's very simple. Because it's either Nintendo, or Nintendo of America, or Nintendo of America's lawyers, or Nintendo of Japan's lawyers. Somewhere in this chain, they decided, we need to shut down another Metroid 2 remake after like 8 years of getting put together. I mean, the game's done. The author was planning on expanding the game, adding more to it, you know, adding Easter eggs and other things, which would have been really awesome. Unfortunately, that was never finished because he received a cease and desist order from Nintendo. Now, someone runs around, tells me, no, there are no, Nintendo doesn't do cease and desist orders, really. There's someone going around sending fake ones in Nintendo's name. I hate to say it, but I've gone ahead and I've looked into the AM2R incident, and the AM2R cease and desist order came from a legitimate law firm. That much I've confirmed. So the takedown for AM2R is absolutely true. And yet to this day, people will post on my AM2R video about, no, the takedowns were fake, they were fake. No, they were real. Nintendo has decided they don't want fans competing with them, which is hilarious because this is a free project. Back when the internet was new, we had companies like Fox shutting down fan sites because, oh, they're using our intellectual property, not realizing, hey, you just converted all those fans into non-fans. All those people who did like you now criticize you. And that's what's happening with Nintendo. Bit by bit, they're eroding away the goodwill of their fans. And yes, they still have quite a bit to bank on. I mean, even if not a single game of theirs was successful for the next 30 years, they would still have enough money in the bank because they are, well, that good investors. They're good on the business side, but they're really crap when it comes to adapting to the times, dealing with their community. Now, in their favor, they have gotten a little bit better at this, listening to Nintendo of America. You see, originally Nintendo of America was its own development branch, and it had its own creators, and it licensed out properties to local programmers and things like that. And we had this whole renaissance of gaming that Nintendo helped bring about with the Nintendo Entertainment System, where, yes, it used some pretty shady proprietary agreements where if you develop for the Nintendo Entertainment System, you could only develop for the Nintendo Entertainment System. That turns out it's illegal now. There's a lot of provisions now that prevent those kind of exploitative contracts. However, understanding that Nintendo of America was a branch that had a huge impact on things, it was very sad to watch as the Nintendo Power magazine was pulled, all of the various side projects and community projects were shut down one by one, until Nintendo of America itself was pretty much gutted, downscaled into a PR department. And that's what Nintendo of America pretty much is at this point. It's a PR department. It also, to my knowledge, I might be wrong on this point, it also helps, litigate against copyright infringement and things like that. Let's talk about copyright infringement for a moment, because the usual retort is, Nintendo needs to protect their intellectual properties or they could lose them! No, that isn't true. I've actually made you can probably find some of my inaccurate posts on the internet around in some obscure forums or something where I do say that if you don't protect your intellectual property, you could lose it, because I didn't understand intellectual property law to the full extent I do now. And it turns out that you enjoy copyright on the things you make, period. Especially registered copyrights like Nintendo does. Like large companies have registered copyrights, which make them very easy to defend in court if someone were to start profiting off of their stuff. No. Where we get into problems is not the use of copyrights, it's trademarks. Trademarks can actually be lost if they are not defended. There is a huge difference, a world of difference between a copyright and a trademark. But here's an example. If I decided to make a fighting game using characters from a Nintendo game, call it, say, Project M or something like that, Nintendo doesn't need to intervene. They do not have a legal requirement to take this thing down. It's within their legal right to do so, but they don't have to. But if I make something called Super Smash Bros. 3000, yeah, that's trademark infringement, and they pretty much have to take that down or fear having the term Super Smash Bros. Generalized. And when a term is generalized, it can be deemed unenforceable. So it's mostly in the naming of things. I mean, we look at Bethesda, specifically their overlords at ZeniMax Media, and then we pit them against the author of Doom RL. Doom RL was a rogue-like Doom game. It turns out ZeniMax had no problem with existing. However, this author decided, hey, I'm riding off of my success of Doom RL. I'm going to kickstart this unrelated project, which is totally a roguelike using Space Marines, but it is legally distinct. I do not use the Doom name. I do not use the Doom likeness. The demons are completely different. It's called Jupiter Hell. And so Jupiter Hell, they found they could not go after the project directly, but they looked at him and they said, this fan is now a competitor of ours. We have to treat him seriously. So they sent to him a cease and desist letter for his Doom RL project. They didn't go after Jupiter Hell. They went after Doom RL and said, we don't want to create the appearance that we are endorsing you, which is their official explanation for it. What actually is they're trying to sabotage the project by cutting that connection. I'm a fan game creator who wants to go pro. I'm basing my pro work off of my fan work. What ZeniMax tried to do was to forcibly take down that fan work. And it was scummy, it was bad, and we see the same kind of business practices with Nintendo. Except they don't even care to explain things because fan games aren't legitimate in their minds. Fan games are competition. Fan games are infringement. You should enjoy the products they give you and nothing else. That's why they're scumbags. That's how they honor their fan base, by attacking them. If they were good developers, if they were really creative and not just skirting off of the same stuff they made 30 years ago, and yes, they're skirting off the same stuff they made 30 years ago. There's no question about that. If they were truly up to the challenge of making something better, then they'd accept the fan games, they'd let the fan games exist, and then they'd say, it's our job as creators to look at that fan game and say, we need to do better. And that mentality fosters growth. It's why so many games, so many professional quality games now, use things which used to be mods for their earlier titles, or their earlier versions. I mean, an example I can think of right off the top of my head are the mechs from Starbound were a mod for Starbound, and they officially implemented them into the game. I mean, what's to stop Nintendo from officially going to these fan game creators and saying, we want to hire you, or we want to license the source code to your fan game and make it official? We're going to tweak it, we're going to change it, we're going to make it into a format where we can release it on our proprietary platform. We're going to call it Metroid 2R Edition or something like that. You know, something to differentiate it. And, you know, if that actually works, you can tap a source of creators that you couldn't normally. It's kind of like the idea that with Bethesda and the Creation Club and stuff like that. I'm almost ready to talk about the Creation Club again, by the way. I've done quite a bit of research into it, and I feel it's about time to explain Paid Mods 2.0 and how it's actually going to work and how people can't talk about it. But that will come a little bit later on. I just wanted to throw this out first because this is, again, about a month late. But yeah, I get quite a bit of angry fans in response to Nintendo videos going, "Who cares about fan games? I want real Nintendo games." Because they've transcended that level from being a fan to being a fanboy, where they lose all their objectivity. They're unable to see that fans can make things better than the actual company. And they're like, "I just want to play my games." That's the type of Nintendo fan I tend to get in these videos. They don't have any objectivity whatsoever. They rarely have experience with the retro games that these are based off of. And usually they have no experience whatsoever working with games development. I think that's one thing that's hilarious to me. When people see my "What if Skyrim was good" video, go, "This guy has no experience in game development." I've consulted with some game development projects, but I am a writer at the end of the day, not a developer. I learned C++ and promptly decided that this is not for me. So, while I understand the basics of game development, I work very much with ideal situations and storylines. And ultimately, if the finished project can meet or beat it, that's great. But yeah, I'd say a lot of the indie developers out there, people looking to get started in the industry, have so much better a chance with crowdfunding and Steam and such than they ever did before. For every about 1,000 pieces of shovelware we get on Steam, we get something amazing like Shovel Knight, which, you know, obviously all this stuff starts off as retro-inspired games that actually come out and become their own thing. And if you guys haven't played AM2R, I highly recommend finding a copy online. It may not be too easy to find because of Nintendo having taken down the main site. However, it's the internet, nothing truly dies, and I want everyone to come back after this Metroid 2 remake has actually released. Those of you who have actually played it, I want you guys to come back and we can do a comparison between the two. I will definitely steal my wife's 3DS to play this game and try it out, and I'll be doing a comparison video myself a little later on. That was such a scummy move, shutting down a fan game that was charging no money at all. It was just like the best tribute ever to this thing, and a year later announcing this homogenized looking 3D-ish cartoony Metroid thing. But then again, we got Federation Force, so it's very clear they don't know what they're doing. Nintendo have proven themselves to still be scumbags. And this is coming from somebody whose first gaming console he owned was the Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, GameCube, so on and so forth. I don't buy their consoles anymore. My wife got her 3DS, but that's a different matter. Just the level of this just pisses me off so much because AM2R is just such a good game. And it's done so well. Oh, and for those of you wondering why this video isn't featuring Nintendo footage during most of it, that's because Nintendo is copyright claim happy, and I refuse to give them anything for their bad behavior. Either way, thank y'all for watching. Do subscribe because there will be more videos coming down the pipe, specifically talking about Atari and various other things which need to be talked about. And if you really want to contribute, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/thehawkrun, if you are so inclined. Either way, I will see y'all next time.